My friends, tonight I want to speak to you about something that lies beyond the veil of ordinary perception, something that shapes reality itself. There is a presence, a power moving through the hearts of those who have awakened to it. It is not seen with the eyes, nor grasped with the hands, yet it is the very essence of all that is. When a person is filled with this divine presence, their entire being takes on a new form, and their habits become the footprints of God walking upon the earth. Such a person does not react as the world reacts. They do not respond with fear, anger, or doubt, for they know that the power within them is greater than anything in the world. When others see lack, they see abundance. When others tremble at uncertainty, they stand firm, knowing that all things are working together for good. The world may be in turmoil, but their inner kingdom remains undisturbed, for they know the secret, that the external world is but a shadow cast by the light of their own awareness. They speak with authority, yet their words are not their own. When they declare a thing, it comes to pass, not because they strain or struggle, but because they have learned the sacred art of assuming that which they desire. They do not beg or plead. They know that to desire is to already possess. Their speech is seasoned with grace, and every word carries the creative power of the divine. They do not waste words on idle complaints or trivial concerns, for they understand that their words shape their world, and they will not allow anything but truth and life to flow from their lips. When such a person prays, they do not bow in desperation, nor do they ask as though the answer were separate from them. They enter the secret place, close the door, and see only the reality they wish to bring forth. In that sacred silence, they commune with the infinite, knowing that what they assume as true in that holy moment will solidify in time and space. They have mastered the law not through struggle, but through the effortless acceptance of the truth that all things exist within them. They move through life with an ease that others cannot comprehend. Where others toil and strive, they simply rest in the knowing that all is unfolding as it should. They do not chase opportunities, opportunities chase them. They do not grasp for love, love flows to them effortlessly. They do not fear the future, for they know that creation is finished and all they must do is align with the highest version of themselves. Such a person does not seek to control others, nor do they judge by appearances. They see beyond what is and into what can be. They look at the sinner and see the saint, at the broken and see the whole. They hold every man and woman in the highest regard, knowing that what they perceive in another, they call forth in themselves. They walk among the lost, but they themselves are never lost, for they are the light of the world. Above all, they love, not as the world loves, with conditions and expectations, but with a love that knows no bounds. They love because they are love, because they understand that to love another is to love the divine within them. They see the face of God in all things, and because they see it, it is revealed. They do not need to be loved in return, for they are already full. Their love is not a need, but a gift, flowing ceaselessly, without demand. This, my friends, is the life of the one who walks with the Holy Spirit. Not by effort, not by striving, but by the simple knowing that they and the Father are one. The one who is filled with the Holy Spirit walks as if the entire universe conspires in their favor, for indeed it does. They are not bound by the limitations of the world, nor do they accept lack, sickness, or despair as permanent realities. They have been given dominion, not over others, but over their own mind, their own perception, and in mastering these, they master life itself. They understand that all power is in consciousness. They do not look outward for salvation, for they know that the kingdom of heaven is within. While the world searches for signs, for proof, for validation, they quietly go within, assuming the reality they desire, and then rest in the certainty that it is done. The world may call it faith, but they know it to be law, an eternal principle that does not fail. They walk with a confidence that is not arrogance but divine assurance. This confidence is not in their personal strength, but in the knowing that they are one with the source of all things. There is no struggle, no striving to make things happen, only the effortless unfolding of that which they have already accepted in their hearts. To them, miracles are not rare events, but the natural order of life. Healing, abundance, transformation, these are not things they seek, but things they expect, for they understand that to truly believe is to already receive. Where others are tossed by the storms of life, they remain unmoved, for they know that reality is not happening to them, it is happening through them. They do not react to the world, they create the world. If they see discord, they do not engage in battle against it, but rather they turn inward and change the state within. They do not fight against darkness, they simply bring forth light. They do not resist sickness, they assume health. They do not struggle against poverty, they embody abundance. And as they do, the external world reshapes itself to match the inner transformation. This person moves with grace as if guided by an unseen hand, because indeed they are. They do not rush, nor are they anxious about the future, for they know that everything unfolds in divine timing. They trust the process, not because they see every step ahead, but because they know the end from the beginning. Just as the sculptor sees the masterpiece within the stone before a single chip is carved away, they hold the vision of their highest self long before the world reflects it. And because they hold it, it must be so. Their patience is not passive waiting, but a deep knowing that what is theirs cannot be taken, that what is promised cannot be denied. They do not demand signs, for they themselves are the sign. Their very life becomes proof of the unseen reality at work. They need not convince anyone, for the fruits of their faith are evident in the peace they carry, in the joy that radiates from them, in the effortless way blessings seem to flow into their lives. They are never victims, never at the mercy of circumstances. They know that nothing happens to them, only through them. Even in what the world calls misfortune, they find a hidden blessing, for they have trained themselves to see only good. They do not ask, "Why did this happen to me?" but rather, "What is this revealing to me?" And because they ask from a place of wisdom, the answer always comes. They forgive easily, not out of duty or obligation, but because they understand that to hold on to resentment is to imprison themselves. They do not see enemies, only teachers. They know that every person who crosses their path is a reflection of something within, an opportunity to either heal or expand. They do not waste energy on blame, for they know that whatever they focus upon, they give power to. And so, instead of dwelling in anger, they choose love. Instead of reliving the past, they step into the future. They release, and in releasing, they are free. They give freely, not out of lack or duty, but from an understanding that giving and receiving are one. They do not fear loss, for they know that what they send out returns to them multiplied. They do not hoard their blessings, for they live from a place of infinite supply. They are not concerned with how, when, or through whom their needs will be met, only that they will be met, and so they always are. They do not seek approval from the world, for they are already approved by the divine. They are unaffected by praise or criticism, for their sense of self is rooted in something deeper than human opinion. When the world calls them foolish, they remain steady, for they know that wisdom is not always recognized at first glance. They walk a path that few understand, but they do not require understanding from others. They only require alignment within themselves. They love not as the world loves, with conditions, expectations, and demands, but with a love that is pure, unshakable, and complete. They do not love because another has proven themselves worthy. They love because love is their nature. They do not wait for others to change before they love them. They see them already perfected, already whole, already divine, and because they see it, it becomes so. They never speak of what they do not wish to create. They do not dwell on problems, only solutions. They do not entertain fear, for they know that fear is but the illusion of separation. Their mind is a garden, and they tend it carefully, allowing no weeds of doubt or despair to take root. They meditate upon truth, they speak life, they expect goodness, and because they do, their entire world reflects it. They know that nothing is impossible. They have left behind the small, limited thinking of the world and embraced the vastness of the divine within them. When others say it cannot be done, they smile, for they know it already is. They do not see obstacles, only stepping stones. They do not see barriers, only opportunities to prove that the unseen is more real than the seen. They walk through life with joy, not because they are blind to suffering, but because they see beyond it. They understand that all things are passing, that what is seen is temporary, but what is within is eternal. They do not cling to the transient, nor do they fear loss, for they know that what is real can never be taken from them. They move in a state of gratitude, not for things alone, but for the very breath they breathe, for the awareness they possess, for the love that fills them. When they enter a room, the atmosphere shifts, not because they demand attention, but because their presence carries the weight of something greater. People may not understand why, but they feel drawn to them, comforted by them, inspired by them. They are not trying to be special, they simply are. Their being radiates light, and in their presence others begin to believe in something greater than what their eyes can see. They do not fear death, for they know that life is eternal. They do not mourn as the world mourns, but they celebrate the continuity of the soul. They have moved beyond the illusion of separation, knowing that the same spirit that animates them animates all. They live in the awareness that they are not a body, but consciousness itself, moving, expanding, becoming. This is the life of the one who has become a vessel for the Holy Spirit, not by effort, not by striving, but by surrender, by allowing the divine to fully express itself through them. They are not waiting for heaven, they are bringing heaven to earth. They are not seeking miracles, they are the miracle. And because they have realized this truth, they walk in a world transformed. They move through life as if guided by an unseen hand. Yet they do not ask where they are being led, for they trust that every step is already ordered. They do not look outside themselves for confirmation of their path. They walk it boldly, knowing that the voice within them is the voice of the divine. They are not swayed by appearances, nor do they fear uncertainty, for they know that what seems unknown to the world is already known to the spirit that dwells within them. Where others seek security in material things, they find security in the eternal. They do not place their trust in wealth, status, or possessions, for they understand that these are but shadows of a deeper reality. They do not chase after money, for they know that supply flows to them as effortlessly as breath. They do not hoard, for they live in the knowledge that they are always provided for. Their abundance is not in what they hold, but in what they release. They give freely, and in giving they receive more than they could ever imagine. They are never anxious about tomorrow, for they have already declared it good. They do not wake with worry, nor do they sleep in fear. They go about their days with a quiet assurance that all things are working in perfect harmony. They do not complain of delay, for they know that every delay is but preparation for something greater. They trust in the unfolding, knowing that what is theirs cannot be lost. They do not beg or plead, they simply accept, for they understand that the moment they believe, it is already done. They do not resist what is, for they know that resistance only binds them to the very thing they wish to change. They do not fight against darkness, they bring forth light. They do not wage war against the things they do not wish to experience. Instead, they turn their attention fully to what they desire, and by doing so, they call it forth into existence. They understand that what they focus on expands, and so they give no energy to fear, doubt, or limitation. Instead, they dwell only in possibility, in potential, in the certainty that all things are within their grasp. They see the world differently than others do. Where others see chaos, they see divine order. Where others see lack, they see overflowing abundance. They have trained their minds to perceive only the highest, and in doing so they reshape reality itself. They are not bound by what others call facts, for they know that facts change, but truth remains. And the truth they hold within them is that they are already one with all that they seek. They do not seek validation, for they already know their worth. They do not need the world to recognize them, for they recognize themselves. Their identity is not in titles or achievements, but in their unshakable connection to the divine. They do not need to prove themselves, for they understand that true power is quiet, effortless, undeniable. They walk into a room and shift the atmosphere, not because they demand attention, but because they radiate something beyond the understanding of the world. Their presence is their testimony. They are not ruled by emotions, but neither do they suppress them. They allow themselves to feel, but they do not become enslaved by feeling. They understand that emotions are but indicators of the state they are dwelling in, and so when they feel discord, they do not panic, they simply return to truth. They do not fear sadness, nor do they cling to happiness. They move through life in a state of deep, abiding peace, for their joy is not based on conditions, but on the unshakable reality that they and the Father are one. They do not argue with those who do not understand, for they know that truth does not need to be defended. They do not seek to convince, for they understand that each soul awakens in its own time. They do not become frustrated when others doubt them, nor are they angered by opposition. They remain steady, knowing that what they know is enough. They do not cast their pearls before those who do not yet see, but they love them just the same, understanding that all are on the path, whether they know it or not. They are patient, not because they must be, but because they understand that everything happens at the perfect time. They do not force, nor do they rush, for they know that all things are already accomplished in the unseen. They do not wish for things to be different, for they trust that all is unfolding exactly as it should. They remain in a state of expectancy, knowing that the moment they align with their highest vision, reality must shift to reflect it. They are not burdened by the past, for they know that nothing that has happened before has any power over them now. They do not carry regret, for they understand that every experience has led them to this moment. They do not dwell in memories of failure or loss, for they know that nothing is ever truly lost. They live fully in the now, unshackled by yesterday, unconcerned with tomorrow. They are free. They do not measure their progress by the world's standards, for they are not walking the world's path. They do not seek approval, nor do they require recognition. They are content in the quiet knowing that they are fulfilling their purpose, even if no one else sees it. They move in silence, creating, manifesting, bringing forth beauty from the unseen. And when the world finally takes notice, they are not surprised, for they knew all along that it was already done. They do not cling to relationships that no longer serve them, for they understand that love is not possession. They release with grace, knowing that those who are meant to walk with them will remain, and those who are not will find their own way. They do not grieve what is gone, for they trust in the endless flow of life. They love without attachment, give without expectation, and in doing so they experience the purest form of love. A love that is free, boundless, eternal. They move with purpose, not because they are chasing a dream, but because they are embodying a reality. They do not need to strive, for they already are all that they wish to be. They carry themselves with an ease that others cannot understand, for they are no longer bound by the illusions of limitation. They do not see problems, only solutions. They do not see barriers, only opportunities for faith to be proven true. They live in gratitude, not just for what they have, but for what they know is already theirs. They do not wait to see before they believe. They believe and then they see. Their gratitude is not conditional, for they do not give thanks only when things are going well. They give thanks in all things, knowing that every moment, every experience, every breath is a gift. And because they are grateful, more is always given to them. They do not seek out signs and wonders, for they understand that they themselves are the sign. They do not need miracles to believe, for they know that life itself is the greatest miracle. They do not wait for confirmation, they confirm themselves. They do not look for external proof, they become the proof. They do not need to see the way ahead, for they know that every step is already prepared. They are at peace, not because the world is peaceful, but because they have found peace within. They do not wait for circumstances to be perfect before they feel joy. They bring joy to every circumstance. They are light in darkness, calm in the storm, certainty in the unknown. They do not try to change the world by force. They change it simply by being who they are. This is the life of one who walks with the Holy Spirit. Not a life of striving, but of resting in the knowing that all things are already complete. Not a life of fear, but of faith. Not a life of seeking, but of realizing. They are not waiting for the divine, they are the divine in expression. And because they have embraced this truth, the world itself bends to meet them. They move through life untouched by the illusions that entangle others, for they have seen beyond the veil. They do not live as the world lives, running after fleeting desires, chasing shadows, or fearing loss. Instead, they abide in a place of quiet assurance, knowing that everything they seek is already within them. The tides of circumstance do not shake them, nor do they allow the shifting opinions of men to determine their worth. They have made their dwelling in the presence of the divine, and nothing outside of them holds power over their peace. They do not wake up wondering what the day will bring. They rise, knowing they are the authors of the day. They do not leave things to chance, for they understand that there is no such thing as chance, only consciousness in motion. They determine in the morning what will unfold in the evening, and by the time the world sees it, they have already lived it in the unseen. Their faith is not hope, it is certainty. They do not ask if something will happen. They know it already has, and because they know, the world must conform. They do not hold grudges, nor do they waste energy on past offenses. They understand that to hold resentment is to poison their own spirit, and so they release freely, expecting nothing in return. They forgive not as an obligation, but as a natural outflow of their understanding. They see every person as themselves, pushed out, every event as a reflection of their own state, and in this knowing they take responsibility not for what others do, but for what they create within. They do not blame, for they recognize that all things come through them, not to them. They are never in competition, for they know that there is no scarcity in the divine. They do not compare themselves to others, nor do they envy another's success, for they understand that there is no limit to what can be received. They rejoice in the abundance of others, knowing that it is but a reflection of the abundance that flows to all. They do not grasp or cling, for they have transcended the illusion of lack. They give without fear, love without restraint, and walk in a state of wholeness that cannot be shaken. They are not afraid to stand alone, for they know that they are never truly alone. They do not seek the crowd, nor do they fear solitude. They have found a wellspring within, a source that is ever flowing, and in this they are complete. They are not desperate for companionship, for they attract effortlessly those who are aligned with their spirit. They do not chase after love, for love is who they are, and those who are meant to walk with them will find them naturally, drawn by a force beyond words. They do not fear failure, for they do not believe in failure. To them there is only learning, only growth, only movement toward higher understanding. They do not dwell in self-pity, nor do they see setbacks as punishment. They know that every seeming obstacle is but a stepping stone, every detour a divine redirection. They trust the process, not resisting, not complaining, but flowing with the current of life, knowing that even in what appears to be lost there is a hidden gift. They do not waste time explaining themselves to those who cannot see. They know that the blind cannot be forced to perceive the light. They must awaken to it in their own time. And so they do not argue, they do not debate, they do not seek to convince. They live their truth so fully, so completely, that their very presence becomes the evidence of what is possible. They do not seek validation, for they are already validated by the divine within them. They walk in silence when necessary, understanding that wisdom is often found in stillness. They do not need to announce their every move, nor do they seek recognition for their works. They plant seeds with patience, knowing that what is sown in secret will bear fruit in due time. They are not hurried, not anxious, not restless, for they have mastered the art of divine timing. They move only when inspired, speak only when necessary, and trust that what is meant for them will arrive without struggle. They do not let the opinions of others dictate their direction. They do not bow to the expectations of the world, nor do they compromise their truth for acceptance. They are unmoved by praise and unshaken by criticism, for they understand that both are fleeting, both are illusions. They do not live for approval, nor do they seek permission. They follow the inner voice, knowing that this voice is the only true guide. And when the world calls them foolish, they smile, for they know what the world does not yet understand. They do not live for the material, though they lack nothing. They understand that wealth is not measured by what one possesses, but by what one realizes within. They do not chase money, for they know that abundance is a state of being. They do not worry about provision, for they know that all things flow from the unseen, and because they live in this knowing, they attract effortlessly. What others strive for comes to them naturally, not through force, but through alignment. They are kind, but they are not weak. They love, but they do not allow themselves to be used. They serve, but they do not become slaves to the demands of others. They set boundaries with wisdom, understanding that to preserve their own energy is to honor the divine within them. They give from overflow, not depletion. They help where they are led, but they do not sacrifice their peace. They move in balance, knowing that true service comes from a place of strength, not exhaustion. They do not fear opposition, for they understand that light will always be met with resistance. They do not shrink back when challenged, nor do they allow doubt to enter when faced with difficulty. They remain steady, knowing that what is real cannot be threatened. They do not engage in battles that do not serve their purpose, nor do they waste energy on those who seek to provoke. They remain above, observing but not entangled, choosing always the higher path. They do not attach themselves to labels, for they know that identity is beyond words. They are not bound by past mistakes, nor do they cling to old definitions of self. They evolve, they expand, they become. They do not hold on to an image of who they were, for they are constantly renewing, constantly stepping into greater expressions of the divine. They embrace change, knowing that transformation is the nature of life. They do not live with a sense of entitlement, but with a sense of deep appreciation. They are grateful for every moment, every breath, every experience. They do not take for granted the gifts they have been given, nor do they demand more without first honoring what they already have. They see beauty in the small things, joy in the ordinary, and miracles in what others overlook. Their life is one of constant thanksgiving, and in this state of gratitude, they attract more to be grateful for. They do not look to the world for peace, for they have found peace within. They do not wait for circumstances to align before they feel joy, for they have learned that joy is a choice, not a condition. They are not bound by the limitations of logic, nor do they allow fear to dictate their steps. They walk by faith, not by sight, knowing that what they believe will become their reality. And so they believe only in the good, only in the possible, only in the highest vision of what can be. They are not waiting for salvation, for they know they are already saved. They do not seek an external God, for they have realized that the divine is within them. They do not bow to fear, for they have discovered that love is the only truth. They do not live in separation, for they have seen through the illusion. They are one with the infinite, one with the eternal, one with all that is. And because they know this, they walk in a world transformed, untouched by doubt, unmoved by fear, radiant in the fullness of divine presence. And so, my friends, the one who walks with the Holy Spirit is not waiting for the world to change, for they have already changed within. They are not seeking the divine outside of themselves, for they have become the vessel through which the divine expresses. They do not live in hesitation, in doubt, in fear, for they know who they are. They walk in power, in peace, in unwavering certainty, for they have aligned themselves with the eternal truth that creation is finished, and all they must do is step into the reality they have already claimed. They are not separate from the source of life, they are one with it. They do not need permission to become, for they already are. They do not wait for signs, for they are the sign. They do not seek miracles, for they are the living manifestation of the miraculous. They do not waver, for they know that all things must bend to the will of the one who fully believes. They have embraced the truth that heaven is not a distant place, but a state of being. And because they live in this state, they bring heaven wherever they go. They do not wait for the world to recognize them, for the world must eventually conform to the image they hold within. They do not fear what is to come, for they have already declared it good. They walk in faith, in love, in divine authority, knowing that nothing is impossible, for the Spirit within them is the very same power that spoke the universe into existence. This, my friends, is the life of the one who truly walks in the Spirit, not a life of struggle, but of rest, not a life of waiting, but of knowing, not a life of seeking, but of being. And because they have stepped into this reality, the world itself must bow before them, for they have awakened to the greatest truth of all, that they and the Father are one.